Hi, everybody. I'm here with Megan, and Megan is going to be taking over our Monday 9 a.m. class as of this recording, if you're listening to it here in the spring of 2024. And she's also going to be taking over some prenatal series that we're going to be doing, and there's a longer talk. There's really intriguing, I think. Like, I obviously don't have any use for prenatal yoga whatsoever, but even I found it really super intriguing. And you can find that down below. We'll leave a link for that longer prenatal talk that will talk specifically about the prenatal series. But in the meantime, what we want to do is just introduce you guys to our new teacher at Main Street Yoga Center, Megan. And I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, Megan. It's a little intimidating when I look at it.
Ionnrachtaigh.
Ionnrachtaigh. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. So welcome, Megan. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing pretty well. I've been teaching yoga for about 5 years and really excited to start teaching at various places in Madison.
Yeah. So you taught outside of Madison before?
I taught in Chicago a little bit at the yoga school where I took yoga teacher training at Moksha Yoga.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was an Ashtanga yogi at that point and taught the half primary series for a little while, very informally, and also community classes and a couple of workshops there before I traveled and made moves to come to Madison.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those listening that aren't aware, so Ashtanga yoga is this, there's a few different series to it. The primary series is what a lot of people are used to. This is a yoga by Pattabhi Jois originally, and kind of is in some of the inspiration for more of like the power flow styles of yoga, like more of the flow styles that have a little bit more rigor and fire to them. So, like, is that what people should expect from your flow class? Is like this kind of like rigor, fire, like Ashtanga kind of thing, or like what's No, okay.
I don't think you should come to my class expecting that. I prefer more. I did Ashtanga yoga mostly so I could develop my own practice. I kept going to yoga studios and being like, oh, I just want my own practice. And so getting into the rhythm of doing one consistent practice day after day, eventually you sort of get in tune with your body and then are able to expand and realize what it is you need to feel like you've had a full practice on the mat. And so that has influenced me greatly for sure. But if you come to one of my classes, you should probably expect to connect with spirit and to Mick, can you help with them? Okay. You should expect to connect with spirit and okay. We have an intruder in the interview. Hi, Pam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like a little someone from your first prenatal days
Yes.
just came in a little bit. So yeah, definitely check out that prenatal link underneath. Some really cool stuff in there you can learn. And yeah, so your flow class, you were saying a little bit about like connecting to the sacred, like some of these things.
Yeah, connecting with spirit, connecting with yourself, really taking time to settle into the space of awareness in your own body, and then holding postures for probably a little bit longer than you might in typical flow classes.
Yeah.
I like to let people settle into the poses and then maybe connect it into a flow that moving with breath. After people get a chance to really feel Warrior One and feel Warrior Two before just staying there for one breath kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to take your time, like
Yeah.
to whether
Yeah.
it's stretchy or holding something pretty strong, or is oftentimes the case in yoga, something
Hmm.
that's doing a bit of both or in between.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So so one of the things I'm hearing from you is like, so you started in Ashtanga, there's a set sequence, there's a way in which the set sequence kind of creates a structure from which in you can connect to yourself and connect to uh, some kind of deeper sense of being in your body.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes those set sequences can be a really helpful way to do that, especially if you're not going to yoga class, because oftentimes that's kind of the teacher's job, which is to like set the structure for things so that you can just not worry about the structure, just go into the experience, go into the moment to moment breath, go
Hmm.
into all those elements of being, what we might think of as a little bit more in touch with beingness.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hear your flow class having a lot of those elements of like you're there holding the structure, and there's an invitation to go more into a beingness in the poses. You said connecting to self, connecting to spirit. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, many of the cues I use, I think, take you into those realms. So,
yeah, got it. Cool. So I think we're good still having this conversation. I am noticing that your video and your audio are kind of like desynced from each other, but hopefully that's
oh
not
no.
too much of a problem for folks. Um, but definitely we can still hear you really
Okay,
well.
that's
Um,
good.
so yeah, I like that. I think there's something about getting into the experience of self and getting into the experience of body. Is there anything else you want to say about that? How that is to connect to body or to connect into spirit, or how that might be a pathway into something we call spirit?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. I think in the last few years, I've realized that yoga is much beyond just a physical movement. It's the mind, body, and spirit, as colloquial as that sounds. And so anything I can do to help people tap into that is what I strive for,
Mm,
whilst also doing asanas for sure.
yeah.
I like to take part of the time of class to do some breath work, things that you could do at any time during your day that promote relaxation and regulating your nervous system. So, um, practices you can take off the mat and don't necessarily need to be on a mat in order to do them. Nadi Shodhana, you can do that literally anywhere. That's alternate nostril breathing.
Hmm.
Um, Square breath, very simple breathing techniques. Incorporating those into my yoga class is pretty important to me as well.
Yeah, breath is pretty constantly one of those things that I find are it's so powerful. Like a lot of powerful things, it becomes a cliche, and then you have to kind of like dive under the cliche to like get into that power that is the reason it became a cliche in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think breath work in a lot of ways is more powerful than doing asanas. And while you're doing asana practice, the breath is key. How you're using the breath to move at the same time. In Ashtanga, it's breath coordinated movement, which I use a little bit, but the way you breathe during an asana practice is of paramount importance. And
Mm.
so the more that gets practiced and reinforced is huge, I think.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that for me, that's like a big delineation on yoga versus like a stretching class or like a exercise class is that
Mm-hmm.
paramount importance or foundational importance of breath.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's an important thing to connect to too. And in yoga, they say life force and information rides on the breath. So a lot of directing your breath to the sensation that you're feeling in these yoga poses can bring about profound change in your body system. And getting people in touch with that is important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll fit in really nicely with our, our whole bunch of classes that we have going on. One of the things that we've talked about and we strive for at Main Street Yoga Center is to have it both be accessible to anybody who comes in, just in terms of like understanding what's going on, feeling the fit there, but then also we really put a lot into making sure that we take you on a little journey that you're going on. Maybe not the kind of deep dive you might get at something like an ashram or in a longer kind of training format, because it needs to be accessible as a drop-in class, but definitely like a very deep dive versus like the average day-to-day kind of consciousness and things like that. So yeah, I love it. I was wondering, so like I think people listening are hearing the focus on breath. Some of them may or may not have an experience of like how far breath can take them, how far some of the length of holds and the poses can take them, or may have a little bit of an aversion of that to that sort of idea of connecting to spirit. And I'm curious how you might describe that. I would say, like, for me, like one of the things, if people get a little antsy about that idea, that I like to say is like, we have this sense of how our mind is kind of like this machine, right? It like repeats things, it reminds us of things, it does what we plug into it. And same with the body, there's kind of this machine quality to it. But then spirit, we might think of as there's something else, like there's something that animates the machine. Maybe part of that is us, maybe part of it is something greater than us, but there's a felt sense of what it is to exist in that space. And you may have a completely different way of talking about it, but yeah, I'm curious about, because I think a lot of us don't always come to yoga with this sense of like we want to do something, quote, spiritual. And I think it's helpful to hear us talk about how we might frame that.
Yeah. So in my class, I leave it pretty open. I will maybe mention creative force. That's more so in the prenatal series. But I also refer to energy a lot. So I'll refer to people's energy bodies, which is like 6 inches outside of the physical body, generally speaking. And we'll do things and I'll mention those aspects of what we're doing. And then after that, I'll usually say, or you're taking deep breaths, baseline, you're taking deep breaths. And then another layer is this, another layer is this. And so that anyone who comes in can get something or what they're looking for out of the process. And if it sounds a little woo-woo, then you don't have to take that aspect into your consideration.
Yeah,
that's how I roll with it.
Great. Yeah, I think that sounds like a great way to roll with it to me. I think of like when I'm speaking to someone like that, I might say, we all have different ways of conceiving like this miracle of what it's like to be alive, like what it's like to exist. And we can be less connected or more connected to that. And whether we're using metaphor or we're using like language about our experiential body that may be even different than our physical body, right? There's all this different rich language and heritage that we bring down in that explanation. And you can think of it like that, like we're playing with speaking to like what it is to exist and what it is to have more aliveness flow through us.
Yeah. I've been doing yoga since I was 14 in some capacity. So I've been through it all for a very long time. I'd say probably until the last 5 years or so. Um, my experience of yoga was not really connected to spirit, I would say. And so I get that part of it as well. Um, I used yoga as a mode to promote flexibility and mindfulness in sport. And
Mm.
so now it serves a completely different purpose for me. And I think it connects me to spirit, it connects me to higher consciousness, it connects me to um, beyond tangible experience. And I think it's really powerful to incorporate those elements, but at the end of the day, nobody knows anything, and every these sort of intangible elements are constantly shifting and manifesting, and uh, nobody knows anything for sure. And so it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I like that how there's like kind of these two ends of the spectrum. There's like you talked about the physicality and sport, right? Like
Yeah,
that.
both are totally valid and of good purpose in anyone's life.
Yeah. I think that is a great summation, I think, of like what we're trying to do
Mhm.
at the yoga center, which is to really bridge those human ways of being, everything from like the pure physicality, because things like fitness are important, things like able to have good physicality are important. If your back is bugging you, man, that can screw up a lot of things in your life and just make life not work. And so being able to open that up is a great gift. Everything from that to getting that sense of ourselves that's kind of beyond just the mechanistic machinery of the human organism, and get into aliveness and connect to that more intangible space that you talk about, as well as maybe the space in between, like the working with state of mind, state of being, state of the nervous system, uh, stress reduction, stress kind of
Mhm.
skills, things like that. Sounds wonderful. So, super awesome. And yeah, like I said, if you're watching this in when we release it, Meagan will be teaching the Monday 9 a.m. And also in the interim, just so you guys can check her out a little bit more. She'll also be teaching the noon Tuesday for a few weeks, so you can check that out as well. And we'll get this up right away so people can get to know you, Meagan. Is there anything else you want to close with? Anything else you want to say about your class, your teaching, yourself, for to folks out there?
I look forward to connecting and working with a new community of yogis.
Great. Well, welcome to our yoga space, Meagan. It's good to have
Thank
you.
you. Yay.
Yeah. Thank you.